Alright, and we're back. Welcome to the stream, welcome to the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, I want to thank you for your support. I've been getting some positive reviews, positive feedback, which really means a lot to me. So I want to thank you guys for showing your appreciation. I'm doing this purely, as a hobby to teach other people how to do things and to get around issues and problems and stuff like that. And I just want to share my passion. And I know a lot of people are out there who want to see, the hobby being done on video, because it's so hard to start out in the hobby. It's hard to to learn from other painters, other kit builders. There's kind of like a taboo in the hobby where painters and kit builders do not want to share their techniques, kind of like their trade secrets, and there's something to say about that. I personally do not share that philosophy. I just want to learn and teach and share and be able to communicate with other people on on these amazing pieces of art. And I just like to share my work, and hopefully my work is good enough so that it's good content. It's good material for other people to watch and enjoy and appreciate. And at some point, maybe in the future, I can start painting for other people. And I'm already doing that on some smaller level, but most of the time it's for me personally. These pieces are from my collection, and do some stuff on the side. But hopefully in the future I can get to a level where my work will be appreciated enough that it might attract attention from people who want a piece painted by me. That's all for the future. For now, I still consider myself to be a beginner, even though I've been active in the hobby for a long time. Looking at other people's work, I'm like, man, I'm not even on that level yet. I'm just starting out, and I'm just still sticking to my basic techniques, basically. And that's what makes this hobby also hard to get into, is because people do not share their techniques. When you approach other painters, it's almost like you get vague answers to questions about how did you go about that, how did you approach that effect. And it's hard. It's hard, and I get it. People do not want to share their trade secrets, and I just don't look at that way. And I don't see other painters be competitors. I see other painters as fellow painters and colleagues, and fellow passionate kit builders and stuff like that. So I've been getting a lot of positive feedback. I'm getting a lot of likes and a lot of views on videos that have been out for a day or two. Usually it takes a long time for stuff like that to build up, but I'm getting a fair amount of positive feedback so far, and people sending me private messages, and I really, really, really appreciate it. So thank you. For this stream, for this video, it's just going to be a continuation of what we've been doing so far. I'm still working on the King Skull Valdezz. Just wanted to start out by kind of figuring out what the scale of this piece actually is. It's somewhere between 1/5 scale and 1/4 scale. Like I said in other videos, scale is so hard to determine because each company has their own kind of rules for scale, and then each line is smaller or bigger than what they advertise. And I've seen 1/3 scale statues where I'm like, that's nowhere near 1/3 scale. I have a 1/3 scale standing above me, and he's just way taller, way bigger than, you know, other statues that are advertised the same size. So it's always a little bit difficult to tell a scale. But, you know, for example, with this Predator head, I have like a Machiko no Gucci, which I'm repainting. And the Predator head, given that the Predator head is bigger than her head, and that's not including the dreads yet. And so, kind of in between, is this the wrong scale? Did they advertise this the wrong way? Because this is advertised as being 1/4 scale. Should the Predator head be bigger to compete with that scale, or, you know? So it's kind of hard. I just picked for comparison, I picked another piece that I'm working on, which is put on the side. It's another Narin piece, which is 1/6 scale. If you look at the heads, the scale is so much bigger. Even though this is like a really big statue, it's still the size of like the arm. It's not even close to being the same size. And so it's just really difficult to determine what the size and the scale really is, because some statues have like an action pose, or like the character is hunched over, or the knees are bent. So it's kind of difficult to determine that just by comparing heads and stuff. But, you know, that's something interesting. Like, if I look at this is almost like the same scale. On the other hand, I tried to compare her legs to the Predator leg, and her legs are definitely a lot bigger. So I think the King Skull Valdezz is 1/5 scale, or somewhere in between 1/5 and 1/4 scale. Maybe Narin himself could, you know, pull the trigger on this issue, but as far as comparisons go, it's really hard. It's definitely bigger than 1/6 scale, as you could see from this statue. But it's big. It's definitely a lot bigger than 1/6 scale. It really has their presence, and that's also, for example, to compare a little bit with the previous statue that we did. You can see the scale difference here. This is 1/6 scale. This is definitely bigger. Here the dreads are already sculpted into the sculpture. Here the dreads still need to be attached, so that's something to consider. But if you just look at the head, it's just so much bigger in size. But yeah, that's something, you know. Personally, I don't really care about the scale. I look at the statue as a whole, as the complete presentation of it. I think that's, for me, that's the most important thing. Let's just safely put this away. This is also like a really cool Narin statue. I'm still building it. I'm still working on the primer. I primed him just so that I can make out the detail even more. I'm still, I filled up this arm, and that's like super solid. I used super glue with baking soda, or you could use baby powder. Basically, what you do is you gently put like super glue in the seams, and then you sprinkle on like baby powder, and that will seal, basically. That will create like a super smooth bond, and the seam line will be completely gone. It takes a little bit of practice. I've learned this practice from other modelers, but for example, the seam line is completely gone here. I still need to fill it up a little bit. There. Hope the camera is picking that up. Here's also, again, all these dreads need to be individually placed. For this arm, I also used the same trick, and for the legs I used the same trick, but this is also one Narin piece that I'm still working on. When I have him completely primed, I will hopefully do a review on him, because this is one badass, and he's standing on top of a Pred alien, which is holding his leg here. This statue came with a fitting issue, where he was sitting. He's sitting on top of his shoulder, I believe, and on this side, the arm of the Pred alien has to slide in here, and it didn't fit correctly, so I need to correct that mistake and resculpt a little bit the hole that he goes into. I have to touch it up, but overall, this is like one amazing statue to compare again. Like, Narin's work is so amazing. All of his sculptures are just out of this world. But for today, we are gonna continue our work on the King Skull Valdezz. What we're gonna do today is we are gonna focus on the mandibles. We're gonna place the teeth, and I think from what I've seen so far, it needs a little bit of a filling, gap filling. So that's what we're gonna hopefully do today, so that you can kind of see how that process is done. It's a little bit of dust, but from what we've done so far, even though we made like a mistake with the in the previous video in part 2, I think he turned out great so far with the pinning and the pegs. I think that went super well, and now we can progress to the more fiddly bits. And as you can see, let me see if the camera will focus. Hello, focus. There we go. As you can see, it's supposed to go on like that, but the fit is not 100% perfect. There's a seam line, so we're gonna have to touch that up with a little bit of clay, or you can use multi-putty, whatever your preferred material is to do the filling. I usually just use kids clay, just get it in there and then smooth it out. That works for me. I also got multi-putty right here, but it's whatever you prefer basically. But we'll go through that process tonight. So he needs gluing, and then filling, and then some sanding. Hopefully we can make that work. And then he's got the upper teeth. It's important to pre-fit these because we don't want to mess them up and have them crooked. But yeah, that looks badass. Let's see if we can get him to pose for us right now. There we go. That looks badass. Well, that's what we're gonna do today. And the dreads, of course. Now, I think it's wise to start with the dreads because we're gonna have to turn him around a lot and we don't want the mandibles to break. So I think we're gonna start with the dreads. And it's gonna be a challenging task, or a time-consuming task, I would say. I'll put that back in the bag. And then we have all these dreads. These have been individually sculpted by Narin himself. And it's gonna be interesting to see where we want those dreads to go, because we want a little bit of a variation. That's gonna be a fun little task to figure out. So we're definitely gonna use some reference photos from other people, see what they have done, and I just love how different they all are. I don't think there's a single one that's the same. We have like beads, and then the traditional decoration. Then we have like a sort of like, might be passed off as bigger beads, I don't know, or maybe like a rope or a fabric. These look like pieces of bone that have been put on. These are like tiny animal skeletons. Look how detailed that is, and how detailed compared to the size of my fingers. And I have very small fingers, by the way, so that's really small. And again, there's like thought put into how it's all being held together. For example, there's another strap holding that skull piece on there. Here's the same thing. The same thing here. You have like a little skull that's being held together, is held onto his dreadlock with wire, and underneath that there's another bones. Interesting. Here, I think what's wise to do right now, because we have to start somewhere, I think it's wise to just start kind of drilling into these dreadlocks and then start pinning them, because we have to have some kind of pin in there, because that's gonna make the painting process a lot easier when we just have to put them into the statue with a pin and then glue them together. I don't want to have to use too much glue on the part itself. I want the glue on the pin, so that I don't damage my paint job, because super glue tends to create like a fog-like effect on your paint job. It's definitely something you don't want to do. Definitely not, because dreadlocks on a Predator are always like a really dark color, like a black, or whatever you want to go for. But you don't want super glue to mess up your paint job, and it's gonna fog on the head as well. So I think I want my my glue on the pins and not the part itself. So I think we're again gonna go for a really small drill, and we're gonna use our paper clips. That's what we're going for. That's the size. I mean, we can't go any bigger and we can't go any smaller. I think it's just wise to start drilling some holes, so we can at least put some pins in there. It's gonna be a lot of drilling tiny little holes, and we don't have to use like a lot of material or a lot of we don't have to make the pins really long. It just has to have enough length and enough material so they can grab onto the statue, grab onto the head. So just a little bit of a pin is enough. And maybe we don't even have to glue them. Maybe just by having a pin they will stay in. I doubt that though, but you never know. And I don't think I want to use the power drill. I don't know. Maybe after doing 3 of these, I decide, you know, this is going to take too long. I'm just going to get my power drill and just be real gentle. I don't know. This seems like the resin is also really hard. So it's really tough to get in there. I don't know. I'm just gonna make some pilot holes and see where we go from there. I mean, I can drill into these parts. That's not a problem. It's just you have to take your time and be gentle. But this is going to be a long process. I knew that from the beginning when I went into this. That's why I kind of like my dread sculpted. It's also when they're sculpted, Narin tends to sculpt. When he's sculpting dreadlocks, they're much more dense. It looks like he sculpts way more dreadlocks than when he uses these separate dreads. So the statues with the separate dreads have a lot less dreads than the sculpted statues. So I prefer my my predators to have the dreadlocks sculpted in. But I don't know the reason why he didn't go for that for this statue. I think he once asked the community what they wanted, and I think the result was sculpted. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think most people preferred the sculpted dreadlocks. And I know I definitely want that. Where's the thing that we drilled? See, that's what I'm talking about. I'm already lost, and I'm only done 2 so far. So it definitely fits, but we have to be super careful. Super careful that we're not gonna crack those. So what I think is best, that was our original idea. Get our power drill and then drill in the middle and then not screw it up. But on the second one, we instantly got a crack. So yeah, that wasn't fun. Let's see if we can find the one that was punctured. Yeah, that was this one. Now it's not really big. It's not unfixable or anything. But still. So, okay. We're just gonna put our drill on the lowest setting. So he was just ballsy enough to hold his hands like that. You don't have to go real deep or anything. Just have to have enough of a hole for the pin to hold on to. Oh yeah, that's definitely a lot better. So we're gonna take our paper clips. So hopefully this is not gonna end up being like a blooper kind of stream. Hopefully this is gonna turn out to be a success like every other stream so far. We did some amazing things on stream. So that's what I noticed earlier. Okay, no, never mind. Just let me ramble. That is excellent. As long as that has like enough of a grip, we're good. I just leave it longer intentionally. We're gonna cut that off later when we know how much material we need. Ooh, what happened there? So, another problem. The drill broke off. It just snapped off. That is messed up, man. That is messed up. So yeah, like I said, it's gonna be a blooper. It's gonna be filled with bloopers tonight. So that's kind of okay. So he needs to get glued. There's no other way. But it's not a big issue because we can just use him for the side like that. And we could definitely glue him. He won't get in the way of the painting process. But yeah, there's all kinds of trouble. So let's just continue on with the hand drilling and then see. Make those pilot holes and then we'll figure it out later. It's gonna be kind of boring stream this way, but I have no other choice. I just have to I have to kind of show the people on YouTube as well, like, hey guys, this is how it goes. These are all kind of the mistakes that you can make and how to fix them. You know, the making of the mistake, that's not the issue. The issue is, can I fix the mistake? And can I, you know, recover from that? Or have I destroyed something that's unrecoverable? You know, that's kind of the reason why I do these streams and these videos. So you can definitely see why this is such a tedious and boring task. But you know what? We're just gonna champ our way through it, I guess. There's no other solution. Take her time, take her time. Oh, here it is. Oh. The good thing is, once these pins are inside the dreads, they're never gonna come out. That's the good thing. In order to get them in there in the first place, well, we've displayed that that is a little bit of a challenge. Ah, no! Don't get stuck in there. So we had a little bit of a crack in this one. It's super tiny. You're not even gonna see it, but it's still there. And you don't want cracks. Oh, super glue on it. Let the super glue get into the crack. Dab the excess off. Let it dry. Continue. No stress. No, there won't be any stress. It's hobby time. Hobby time is about relaxation. Alright, we've done them all. To protect that pretty little face. Alright, so let's evaluate what has to be done. We have to drill in the middle of these holes, tiny holes, just like we did in the dreads. Now we don't have to really worry about resin cracking, but we do have to consider the position of that hole, because for example right here on the top layer of the holes, it's very thin even, and even though you're drilling a little bit at an angle, still you have to be careful that you're not going to go through it. But that's something to watch out for. All the other holes will not be a real issue. So let's start with the bottom ones. Alright, oh yeah, that was what we're gonna try out. Gonna take one with a smaller Now this is the idea, and then you have a little bit of playroom, but that's the idea. Now what I wonder, what I haven't seen a lot of people do, is let's compare heads one moment. Now if you take this Predator for example, and that goes for all Predators, at least the ones sculpted by Narin, is that the dread is not actually sitting in a hole. It's attached to that crown, basically. This is called the head crown, basically, and you can see that the dread is just attached to that and not actually it doesn't actually slide into that. But here you can clearly see that it slides into a hole. So what I'm wondering is if I shouldn't just fill that up with some kind of clay, or at least, you know, something, because I feel that it's not the same, if you get my drift. So I wonder if I shouldn't be just fill those up and then put the dreads in. That would make so much more sense from an aesthetic point of view. But we have plenty of time to think about that. So at least, you know, let's drill some holes and see where it leads. On the side, I would definitely go for like a smaller dread, and it might look funny right now, but when he's completely, when that's sitting on the body, I guess it's just trying out what looks cool, because you definitely want like a natural kind of flow to the hair, because you can definitely, some dreads have a lot more flow than others. I definitely want to take my time with this, because I do not want to damage that head, because that is something I cannot fix. If I break this, it would be such a shame. But like I said, I might want to consider putting some clay in there for aesthetic purposes. That would make a lot more sense. See, that's the idea. Alright, so what we're gonna do, we are gonna look at some reference photos because I want to know what other people have done. So I do think, like, for example, I'm looking at one right now, and they kind of went a different route when it comes to dreadlocks. They bent them more backwards, or they angled them closer to the body. Let's see if we can. Let's see if we can get that on camera. This is better. So I have seen this one, for example, I have seen versions where his dreads are hanging on his shoulder. I've also seen versions where it's angling more that way. Oh. Oh, this is a different one. Oh, that one. Or it's angling more like that way. And I kind of like both of them. See if we can make that stick here. So the picture that I'm looking at right now has the dreads like closer to his body, closer together, so that they're more bunched up. I've also seen like versions where they're more spread out, like they're waving in the wind, basically. Let it hang like that. So let's take a look at some more reference photos. So I kind of like it when it's kind of hanging over his body, but then you're kind of losing that density. Then they're more spread out, and I kind of like the fact that they're close together as well. Tough choices. You bend them a little bit like that. So the thing is, I wanna... There are some really cool looking dreadlocks with some really cool detail. Like, see, there's some really cool dreadlocks with some really cool skulls and decorations on them, and I definitely want those to be visible and displayed so that, you know, you can see the detail. So those go on top, and then kind of the boring ones, so to speak, they should go on the bottom. Oh. You can see here in the background, I'm kind of using a little bit of a reference from somebody else. See what they have done, and they kind of went for the same thing, where they used like the boring looking ones. They went on the bottom row, and these do not want to stick. And then the ones with, you know, really interesting trophies, make them more visible, basically. What I'm doing is I'm taking some of that sticky stuff you use for posters and stuff like that. Again, stuff I've been using all project. I'm using them as a temporary kind of glue. I can see where things have to go and things won't fall out. Used a little bit too much on that one. And sometimes with things like this, you just have to kind of do, you know, build it, do it, and then leave it overnight, and then come back tomorrow and look at it. Sometimes you're doing something and you're like, it's not really what I'm going for, but sometimes you just have to let it rest. Definitely with paint jobs, that's a thing with paint jobs. Sometimes you're not sure if you did something right, and you just have to leave it overnight and let your brain rest, basically, because when you're doing it, you're kind of super critical of yourself. And if you just relax and sleep on it a little bit, that's a little bit too much. I think this looks really good so far. I think with the naked eye it looks good, but we're gonna see. So I think we had a small one with an interesting detail on it. Let's see, yeah, that one. I might want to have that one like that over his shoulder. Kind of blend those things together, make it an interesting scene. Maybe put that one on top and then bend it down a little. No, we're gonna put that one here, maybe. Yeah, okay. And then that one there, because that flows better over his shoulder. That one here. Where is my... This also gives me a good idea if I should fill these spaces with something, because I do not want these gaps in between the Predator head crown and the dreadlocks. If you can see, there's the hole is too big, and I've seen a lot of reference photos where people just leave them like that, and technically that shouldn't be like that. Technically, if you're going on movie accuracy on the Predator, that should be filled up. That should not, the dread should come straight out of his head. So using that sticky temporary material that I'm using, and it kind of fills that gap, and it gives me kind of like an idea of how that's going to look when I want that permanent. So but I think I'm going for that. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fill those holes up with clay and then put the dreadlocks in. So that there's no gap there anymore. You know what? I think it's better to put this one on top and then this one on the bottom. I think that looks better. See, we're getting a lot more density right now. I kind of like that. I like the density. I don't want them to be spread too far apart. Alright, so we're gonna do the other side. So far I'm happy with it. Yeah. That was one that had its pin broken off. We're gonna have to gotta improvise here. So I want, no, that's too much material. So I'm gonna put the material in because the pin broke off. That was the one where our drill, the drill broke off in the dreadlock. So the drill is still in there. Well, we can't drill it out now because it's metal, and we can't drill out metal. We can't get it out. So we're just gonna leave it in there. That's too much material. Get it out. like that. See how that kind of mimics. Yeah, kind of like that. All right, we have another one. I want something interesting. I want something with a skull. Like that. Something with a skull. All right. How many holes do we have? Okay, I think we've covered all the holes on the bottom. Then we're gonna move on to the middle. It's fiddly work, but like in previous videos that I've said, like, if you take your time, the result will be much sweeter than if you rush it. But the ones with the most detail and the most interesting stuff going on, you want those on top so that you get to see those. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on top. Get these. That's 6. And then we have 2 in the middle row. Well, we can go both ways. I do think that this is also an interesting one. It's got sort of like a necklace or an armband type of thing with beads around it, and then underneath there's another material. So that, again, that's like an interesting thing to look at painting wise. And then here's like a double bead, and then underneath there's, so that's also an interesting thing to look at painting wise. We want to make sure that those are visible, so that when you've painted them, they make an interesting scene as a whole. So put that there. I think, yeah, you can easily see that. That's no problem. And then the one with, I think I want this on top. Then this is a small one. Put that on the side. So if things are not visible for you on camera right now, for example what I'm doing right here, bear with me. I will, once I've put them all in position, I will go over what I've done, how it looks. Oh, bear with me. So I definitely want the remaining ones with the skulls. These olive skulls, I want those on top. And those the dreads on top create that density, basically make it look like it's really dense. So here's another one of the dreads when we were drilling this. Another drill bit broke off, so this is the second drill bit that broke off while we were drilling that. Which one am I going to do in the middle? They're both really cool looking. This one's the most interesting. I want that in the middle. So the ones without a pin, I'll have to kind of hope for the best and hope that they stick to the material. All right, that was the final one. And I think I would want to bend them in a little bit to create much more density, create the idea that they're much closer together. I think with the dreads, I do think that they should be bent a little bit downwards. Not too much, but a little bit, just a little bit. There's the one without the pin that wants to move. Bend that in a little bit. Oh yeah, that looks all right. So see if we can get a good top view of it. When you're, it definitely looks good. I didn't really follow the reference photo, but that's okay. We figured it out on our own. Yeah, he looks cool. But then again, like, it's gonna look even cooler when it's completely painted. I think these should be a lot more bent, even closer to his shoulder. All right. Yeah, Yeah, I like it. And because they're not all clumped together, you can still see like the detail on his back, which I think is good. Then at least that paint job in the back will not go to waste. You will still be able to see what's going on in the back, especially with his skull necklace, because there's so much interesting detail there. I wonder what other people would have done, but I can always ask, of course, but I mean, in the end, there's always a fix for it. There's always a solution for it. It's not like I have to do it a certain way. There's always like a solution, but don't want to make it too complicated for yourself, obviously. All right, so we now have to look at his mandibles, which are not a perfect fit. And his mandibles are small, the small teeth, and they weren't a perfect fit, so I have to make them fit, and I have to glue them, and then I have to fill up the seams in between, because you're gonna see it. Now the super glue is gonna solve a little bit of that problem, because it acts like a cement, and it's really good at filling seams, but then again you're still gonna see it a little bit. So we're gonna glue it and then hope that our super glue is gonna take care of most of those gaps, and then we're gonna fill up the gaps with clay or whatever works best. And we're gonna have to sand it. So this would be the perfect way to fit it. Alright. I do not want to wait too long while this idea is still fresh in my mind. See, it's got a tiny peg, which I'm sanding. And this is just a nail file from the beauty section at your local drugstore. And you would think that these things were cheap, but they're not. They really know how to milk that makeup stuff. Now I want the outsides to match. Now I don't think it matters what tooth goes where, or it does. I think even Narin thought about that. So, okay. So the teeth are in there. Now you can clearly see the seam lines, which we're gonna fill up. We're not gonna do that tonight. It's already too late for that. Otherwise, it's gonna be real late. I have to go to work tomorrow, so I can't stay up really late. But that'll be, that'll be an interesting thing to do next stream. How to fill gaps and seam lines, and then how to touch that up, basically. But yeah, the teeth are in. The dreadlocks are in. And come to think of it, we didn't really do a lot this stream, but we just did really tedious work. He looks, with his teeth, he looks really like a really mean predator. Look at that evil smile. And with the dreadlocks, he looks even meaner. Now all of this will be temporary, of course. So to recap, what we have done basically is we've drilled some holes in the dreadlocks. Then we drilled some holes in the head for the dreadlocks to stick into, and we figured out what dreadlock goes where, and we just glued the mandibles, basically. That's all we did. So we didn't really do a lot, but we did enough. We were very close to finishing this model. I'm gonna use some sticky material so that this arm is gonna stay in his body. Alright, so now we can see him in his full glory, basically. Now that he's got his teeth, he looks really menacing. He looks really menacing. So all this white stuff is temporary, of course. That's our sticky stuff, obviously. But I am satisfied with the dreadlocks. I think the density between the dreadlocks is fine. Let me see if I can... Yeah, the density between the dreadlocks is fine. I like the fact that I can still see his back and his decoration on his back. And I do think that he has enough dreadlocks. I was worried that he might not have enough dreadlocks, but he does. And with all of those holes filled up, yeah, it looks really nice. So I am going to think about what to do with the dreadlocks, if I should just glue them permanently onto the head. He really looks like a mean motherfucker. But if I turn him around, if I would attach them permanently, I still have a lot of room to paint. It's not like the dreadlocks are gonna really prohibit me from painting there. So it's just, I have to get smaller brush, get in there. So yeah. And most of that behind his head will be covered in shadows. So I think I'm gonna attach them permanently. I think that'll be the best way to go. But yeah, we basically did the head. That's what we did for tonight. And so next stream we're gonna do a kind of like a tutorial on how to fill the seam lines. Behind me there's another statue that also needs filling in between the gaps and stuff like that. So that'll be an interesting thing to do for next stream, but I won't have the time to do it now. So yeah, so far so good. Alright guys, thank you for watching. I hope you all have a good evening, and stay tuned for the next stream.